Okay, so we're going to talk about how to jumpstart the thyroid. If you're suffering from any kind of hypothyroidism or even hyper, these two oils can be extremely supportive to the thyroid. So Endoflex is a proprietary blend that Young Living makes, and it has spearmint in it, sage, geranium, myrtle, nutmeg, and German chamomile. And it has a little bit of sesame oil as a carrier in it. Um, Most of Young Living's oils don't have carriers in them. You can add them yourself, but this one does because it really is a great topical oil that you can put directly over your thyroid, and so they went ahead and included just enough carrier that you can put this straight on without having to dilute it further, so it's really easy to use, fast, and effective. So my favorite ways to use Endoflex are just putting a drop on my wrist and rubbing them together, kind of like a perfume, and then even adding, if I've got a little residual left on my wrist, I'll rub it over my thyroid gland, or I'll put an additional drop over the thyroid for additional support. I've even heard of people using this in the mouth, like on the inside of their cheek. Whatever way you feel like you could use it on a daily basis, I would highly recommend it. I put this one on particularly in the morning. I like the spearmint. It comes through. It's the main ingredient of this blend, and so it has that nice spearmint smell to it. It's uplifting. It's kind of energizing. It kind of helps get you up and going. So it's one of the very first things I put on in the morning. And that spearmint really helps too with hunger cravings. So if your thyroid is sluggish and you're dealing with being hungry and you're wanting to lose some weight because of that, this can be a really beneficial blend to help support that whole hunger metabolism function. So one of the ingredients of Endoflex is myrtle, and so that's why we also added here. Myrtle is extremely beneficial for supporting glandular imbalances, and it's great to inhale it. It's very soothing, and I really love the smell of myrtle. You can use it exactly the same way as you would use the Endoflex. In doing some reading about myrtle, and doing some Bible study, I read that when the Bible talks about a hedge of protection, it's actually referring to the root word of that hedge in the Hebrew is myrtle, is this tree, and so myrtle is also used for immune support. It's very helpful in protecting you against the things that you might come in contact with every day. And it's also kind of interesting to note that the story of Esther in the Bible, her name in Hebrew is Hadassah, and Hadassah means myrtle in the translation of the background of the word Hadassah. So it's really interesting that she was the protector, that hedge of protection for her people against Haman, and she delivered them. And so I thought that that was really cool. And so whenever I'm thinking I might need to keep myself guarded against things I might come in contact with daily that might suppress my immune system, I like to reach for myrtle. So moving on to the adrenals, a dragon may be dragon or on a rampage, and this all has to do with stress. The adrenals, I think, often get missed. They're these tiny little kind of fatty looking nodular glands that sit right above your kidneys, and they are responsible for a lot of functions in the body. But they produce two major hormones. One of them is adrenaline. Adrenaline is what makes the body get up and go. You actually get a little surge of adrenaline when you wake up in the morning, and that's what helps wake you up and get you going. It also it produces adrenaline in emergencies for this flight or fight response. This is a protection response. It increases our heart rate, our body response. Adrenaline is really super crucial in our overall body function, and so when you've seen movies on TV, or they're giving somebody a shot like an epinephrine shot, that is adrenaline. And so it really is super important to have adrenaline being produced at the right times and in the right amounts. So to counterbalance the effects of adrenaline, the adrenals also produce the stress hormone, which is called cortisol. It produces and releases this to manage the stress of the adrenaline that is pumping through your body. And so when your body gives you that little burst of adrenaline in the morning to get you up and going, the body then counterbalances that by producing cortisol to even your body out. Your body likes to stay in homeostasis, where everything's even and all the parts and pieces are playing together. So cortisol is very important. It's also vital for protein breakdown for fuel. So your body releases cortisol to help break down protein, especially animal protein, for fuel. Your body runs on glycogen, which is a sugar. And so when your body's given protein, it has to do this major conversion into glycogen to be able to actually use that. And that puts a lot of stress on the body. And so your body produces cortisol to help deal with that. And so a lot of people who have done a lot of the high protein, low carb diets really suffer from cortisol imbalance, especially when they come off of those diets, because you're not giving the body the food that it actually needs for quick sugar, and you're giving it lots and lots of protein, and so your body's producing tons and tons of cortisol, and that's pumping through your body. And then you quit the diet and you gain all the weight you lost plus a whole bunch more, because all this cortisol is a stress hormone and it is trying to protect the body. It is storing all of that stuff because it's been starving for glycogen and trying to manufacture it on its own for the entire time you've been on that diet. It's also why, if you're going to have meat heavy meals, have those in the early part of the day when your cortisol is going to be higher naturally to combat the adrenaline from waking up. It's going to have a lot easier time breaking all that stuff down. If you're going to have your heaviest meat meal at night before you go to bed, your body is going to be producing cortisol like crazy to help break that protein down. And then to compensate, your body's going to kick in the adrenaline to help balance out the cortisol levels when it's done doing its thing, which is going to give you that little jolt of I'm not tired anymore right when you're trying to go to bed at night. So it's really important that you kind of watch how you're eating and how those two chemicals, those two hormones, play together. So adrenaline also regulates your blood pressure, which is vital. It also makes you sweat, and that's great for releasing toxins through the skin and regulating your body temperature and a whole lot of other things. So the adrenals are also responsible for producing all of the building blocks for all of your sex hormones. So your ovaries and your uterus don't get all the fun of producing sex hormones. Your adrenals can kick in and even compensate for the lack of those organs. So it's extremely vital to keep your adrenals working properly so that they can make those sex hormones that you need to be able to stay young and have longevity. So some of the symptoms of elevated cortisol are not sleeping well. And when you do sleep, you wake up still tired. I've had those days where I can sleep 10 hours and I probably could lay down and sleep another 10 and probably take a nap after that. So you could also suffer from suppressed immune system. So cortisol production actually suppresses the immune system, and it does that on purpose. And so people that have really elevated cortisol levels will often catch colds and infections really super easily, and they often have a lot of weight around the middle, so those kind of go hand in hand. So just something to think about. They'll often have unhealthy food cravings, backaches and headaches, low or no sex drive, gastrointestinal difficulty, heartburn, gas, bloating, cramps, trying to get in there and break down all of that food you ate and, trying to overcompensate. It also can affect you with, anxiety and depression and some emotional issues. And then excess weight, especially around your middle, which is not a good place to have it for the health of your heart. So even when you eat well and you exercise, it just doesn't budge because the body is in this stress environment trying to hang on to what it needs so that it can have the food and the fuel that it needs to operate. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. In the next video, we're going to pick up and talk about how to kick that cortisol so that you can stop suffering from these symptoms.